Welcome to the Mary Ewing Law Show.
Welcome back to the Mary Ewing Law Show. Mary is a veteran Colorado attorney who has spent more than 40 years helping clients navigate workers' compensation, personal injury, and family law cases. Known for providing clear, compassionate guidance, she helps families protect what matters most when life takes an unexpected turn. I'm LeAnn Lyon, and in this episode, we are talking about the 3 questions almost everybody asks when facing divorce in Colorado. What happens to the kids, the house, and the money? Hello, Mary. It's great to see you again.
Good to see you.
Thank you. Mary, when people first come to you about a divorce, what are the biggest fears or concerns they usually have about those 3 issues, the kids, the house, and, of course, the money?
I think most people are most concerned about what's going to happen with their children. And under Colorado law, we are guided by the statutory imperative that all decisions, all rulings, all agreements have to consider the best interest of the children. That may be decided through simply testimony from the parents. There may be experts called, such as child and family investigators or parental evaluators, who will do specialized evaluations. Often I'm asked, well, what about the children? Don't they get to voice their concerns? Not generally directly. They may be interviewed by the child and family investigator or the parental evaluator to give their thoughts, and then that person testifies. Most matters in court most judges will not allow children to testify, even though that may seem counterintuitive. Of course, we as parents, however, certainly consider what our children want. So children are the first thing. I would say perhaps the house is the second most important. What's going to happen to my house? Do I get to keep it? Does it have to be sold? This is our family home. Often, I represent a lot of high asset clients as well, but they also have concerns about what's happening to the house because, we have emotional connections to the house, and it's where, our love story began. Hopefully the marriage started as a love story. The children were born there and spent their early childhood there. So the home, it's not just a financial commitment, it's a source of memories. But it realistically, finances may require that it has to be sold. That makes it a clean determination. Usually, have to agree on a witness or a realtor or have someone appointed. There may have to be renovations done to bring it up to more ready sale condition, and who's going to pay for that, and what amount of time is it going to take. But generally, putting the house on the market is one of the cleaner cut things. And if you don't have an agreement on how things are going to be split, it's escrowed until you agree or the court determines it. So that's one way. Second way is one spouse buys out the other. Usually requires an appraisal to see what the value is, and there has to be some indication that the purchasing spouse has gotten a commitment from a mortgage banker to remortgage the house so that the other spouse has no further commitments. And that's a big deal right now in our marketplace because people are holding on to mortgages that are maybe at 3 to 4% interest, and now all of a sudden they're at 6 or 7%. So hanging on to that mortgage can be a kind of an important thing. And there are ways that can be addressed with that as well. The third thing is what's often referred to as a nesting arrangement. in which the parties agree. Courts, I've never seen order a nesting arrangement. Parties can agree that they will move in and out of the house, typically on a week-on, week-off basis, so that the children remain in their home uh, for a definite period of time, 5 years, 10 years, till everybody graduates from high school, whatever. That kind of arrangement is really difficult, I think, to manage because it requires a lot of intrusion of each parent. Parents really get along well. It, I suppose, can work, but it is a third option. So, what is, again, going back to your original question, what's the most frightening thing also that someone who comes to me is worried about? And that is, am I going to have enough money after this? Am I going to be broke? Is my spouse going to take my family business? What about my inheritance? All of those things. And people are very worried about that, and they want answers to that, of course. I could give them how the law will work, that things are divided equitably, meaning fairly, most often 50%, but not necessarily. Things like family businesses, even though perhaps they can't be sold on the open market like a lot of insurance dealerships, they can't sell that, still can be valued under Colorado law. Um, Inheritance matters. Those, depending upon how the transfer is made, um, can play a part. So it's seldom that I can say more than, here's what the law says, here's what's going to happen, and I can assure you I will get every penny for you that I possibly can under the law.
So, for parents who want to avoid turning custody into a battle, what has helped the families you've worked with keep things civil and focused on the kids for their best interest?
I think it's helpful to have a good lawyer. It's also helpful for the parents to be involved in some counseling of their own. This is a painful process. It's difficult. It's heart-wrenching, and it's going to affect the parties for the rest of their lives. So counseling is really important. It may help to have family counseling to address the needs of the family, what the children are feeling, to help them through the process, perhaps their own independent counselors. All of that can be very helpful to navigate through the divorce and try to minimize the conflict. Conflict is painful, and if you can avoid it by looking at things rationally, a lot of it is a business transaction, as hard as that is to imagine. Certainly not with the children, but in matters regarding finances, I think it helps to think of it as this is a business transaction now. It's what's going to happen. And with the children, counseling is just so helpful.
I know you've seen a lot of emotions come into play during custody disputes. What is one mistake parents make early on that ends up hurting their case or even their kids the most?
I think social media can be very damaging. It's
Mm.
important to it's important for me to advise my clients or people to be aware that what they post on social media can be used against them in the most amazing ways. Something as simple as someone going to a birthday party for a friend, and they post that they had a really great time at Susan's birthday party could be used by the ex-spouse to establish that that was during what should have been the spouse's parenting time with the children, and they chose to go to a birthday party instead, something you wouldn't necessarily think of. Um, certainly venting against the opposing spouse hurts you. It establishes, even though it seems like you're just venting about the difficulties that you're going through, that could be used against you to show that you're just out to milk the other side or you're a cruel, heartless person. So it's really best to just take a break from social media and not post anything.
Hmm.
I have had clients who created a false imp false person that only their friends knew about. Mm, I suppose that's legal, and I suppose that might work. An alternative, if you got to vent, and the only way you can vent on social media, which I think most people can't avoid that, that's one way.
Well, that is another piece of the puzzle. How are things like credit cards or car loans divided when everything is untangled?
That's a great question because people often think more about the assets than the debt, and yet the allocation of debt can be crippling depending upon how it's divided. So the important thing is that joint debts, to the extent at all possible, need to be divided and closed. In other words, if there's a joint credit card, don't just say, the husband is responsible for taking over that debt or the wife is responsible for this one, because guess what? If they don't pay, that credit card company can still come after you and you got a mess to untangle. It's really best to close the accounts. One person gets one account, one gets the other, and there's some financial reconciliation so that there's not an ongoing entanglement. One of the with children, there's gonna be a entanglement for the probably for the rest of the children's lives, which would hopefully be the parents' lives. But financial matters can be disentangled and resolved so that that doesn't require ongoing entanglement.
Finances, as you mentioned, can feel really shaky during divorce. How do you help people stay realistic about what life will look like once everything is finalized?
A wonderful question, and one that certainly all people going through a divorce want to know. I try to explain to them that whether you're going through a settlement, a mediation, or a court proceeding, you start with a marital asset with balance sheet. So you create that balance sheet that shows all your assets and all your debt. And then you make an addendum to that marital asset that shows what the client most wants to get, what the ideal case would be. Put those things on next to the primary balance sheet. Is that roughly 50%? Is it 30% and they should seek more? Or is it 80% and it's not realistic? So it's important to get your valuations correct. Things like business entities probably need to be evaluated, as I said before, by a forensic accountant so that we know what that business is actually worth. Um, but that marital balance sheet allows somebody to see in black and white what the finances are going to probably look like um, after the divorce. You can also create one that shows what the other spouse wants and try to reconcile the two. Where do they agree? Where do they disagree? How can we come to a midpoint that will work?
You've worked with people going through incredibly emotional divorces. What helps them make sound choices when they're under so much stress?
I usually tell them this is somewhat of a long process. Earliest time you could get an agreement or get a divorce if you have an agreement on everything. There's 91 days, which when you're going through divorce may seem interminable. In reality, if you have to get on a court docket because you couldn't agree with anything, then it may be 6 months or more. So you don't have to make a decision right now. You don't have to panic. Got time to think about it. For goodness sakes, if you've just had an awful fight with your soon-to-be ex-spouse, no need to make any decisions then. It's not even a good idea to. Give yourself time. It's important to process your decision making so that you make decisions that are in your children's best interest, certainly, and secondarily in your own best interest. But keeping in mind that it has to be an agreement that's either going to be reached agreeably with the other spouse or it's going to seem reasonable to the judge. So take time.
As we wrap up today's episode, what would you say to someone listening who's afraid they're going to lose everything, the kids, the house, or their sense of security?
Well, first of all, get a good lawyer who can explain those
Mhm.
realities of your fears. Hopefully, alleviate those fears. Certainly, explain how the process will work and what you are looking at for the future. It's really an important process. And all this, and also, as I said before, counseling. People though ask me, well, shouldn't I just start out with mediation? And today, almost every judge requires mediation through the divorce process. But it's important for clients to remember that a mediator cannot give legal advice. And so the give and take involved in a mediated process really needs legal support, legal analysis, so that a client knows what they're agreeing to and what they're trading to get that agreement. So again, good legal advice.
Well, that is it for today's episode of the Mary Ewing Law Show. If you are facing divorce and need clear, straightforward guidance from someone who's helped Colorado families for more than 4 decades, visit maryewinglaw.com or call 303-886-5400. Be sure to like, leave a review, and share this episode with someone who might need it. Thank you, Mary.
You're welcome.
Thanks for watching. Be sure to hit that like and subscribe button and leave us a review in the comments.